And welcome back, everyone, to the main stage. We're here for the afternoon welcome. I'm Karen Hammer Williamson, Care Services Coordinator for the Northern New England chapter covering Vermont. And it's my distinct pleasure today to introduce a person living with ALS who some of you have already met through our support and resource and connection groups, Dustin KEELTY of Milton. Dustin has been an active participant in chapter activities, including helping to plan the symposium. But most of all, he's a compassionate peer who has reached out to many people and also shared his story publicly to advance awareness of the urgent need for treatments and research for a cure for ALS, for better public policy, especially to eliminate the SSDI income and disability insurance waiting periods, and also reaching out with me and brainstorming about how to support newly diagnosed people and engage people in all of the services and supports in the chapter. And I'm so thrilled that he's agreed to share his story. Dustin, thanks so much for joining us and speaking today.
Oh, thank you for having me, and for the Northern New England chapter for putting this symposium together. It certainly wasn't easy in the changing climate of the world these days, but we were able to pivot and still be able to provide people with valuable information about living with ALS. So thank you guys too. So I'll start by going through a little bit of my journey with ALS, and then I'll wrap it up by bringing in how the association and the chapter in particular has helped me out and can be of use to others. So my symptoms began in 2014. I started noticing some muscle twitching and tremors, arm weakness, and fatigue. Mentioned it to my primary care during my annual physical. It was, hey, you're probably overworking yourself. Try to do a little bit less, and we'll see. A year later, I mentioned it again, and the same pretty much response was, hey, you're young, you're healthy, everything looks good. And then by 2016, at my next primary care visit, she went back in my chart and said, this is 3 years in a row, and you're saying it's getting worse. And that started a whole battery of tests that people living with ALS and their families and caregivers are familiar with, and ended up with a diagnosis in December of 2016. And that was at a doctor here in Burlington, Vermont. And I ended up opting for a second opinion down at Mass General to get more information and to confirm the diagnosis, because it's nothing that anyone wants to hear. With the connection to Mass General, it opened up a whole lot of opportunities for clinical trials. There's a pretty limited population of people with ALS in the Vermont area that are eligible or willing to participate in trials. But by going to Boston at Mass General, it opened up greater opportunities. And I've done countless different studies related to ALS, from interventional, which is, taking experimental medication, to observational studies where they take tissue samples and blood samples, all the way down to informational with like the Muscular Dystrophy Association has a mover study out where they go through my medical chart, de-identify, any identifying characteristics, and try to go through the information in my chart and current visits with my healthcare providers to, get information on possible causes or best treatments. Some of the studies that I've done are like ALS at Home through the Barrow Institute out in Arizona, where you are able to do a lot of observational studies, measuring force vital capacity and hand strength, speaking. Same thing with the ALS TDI Therapy Development Institute. Changes in voice are something that they really look at. And then, for me, it's all about, the support that I receive here at home with my wife and 2 daughters as caregivers, as well as the community as a whole. I was a member, or I still am a member of the fire department here in town, going on 30 something years. And, just a support system that is incredible to have. And to me, that's an important part of dealing with ALS, is having a strong support system. And we named it KEELTY Strong. We've done, sweatshirts and T-shirts for parade floats and, all sorts of things to hand out to people that don't always say KEELTY Strong on them, but most of them are, ALS awareness or, things of that nature. And part of the support system is the ALS Association, and specifically the Northern New England chapter. They have things that raise money and awareness for ALS, like the ALS Walk, which was virtual this year. Care services with Karen here in Vermont and Amber in New Hampshire and Lori in Maine are just phenomenal resources of information. And I have yet to see them without a happy, smiling face to meet or greet with anybody. Advocacy is a big area of mine. This year, I was fortunate enough to participate in the Advocacy Week for Washington, D.C., which was virtual, but we got to meet with members of Vermont's congressional delegation offices. So there was Representative Welch, Senator Sanders, and Senator Leahy's office. I've had the opportunity to meet with Senator Leahy's office with Moret to discuss things of importance to the ALS community and budgeting. Monthly drop-in groups and traveling support group, which have been pretty well attended with members from all 3 states locally. And I believe there was one from New York that dropped in one time. And I've met some wonderful people, whether it's a wonderful couple from Bristol or a nice lady from Brandon, or a gentleman who passed away from Underhill, a couple from Maine that have been at a few of the traveling support groups that are just, phenomenal people to meet. It's great to be able to talk to people who are in a similar situation, and be able to swap stories and tips and tricks is the thing, because you might have something that somebody hasn't thought of that will help out, and it really can be a life changer. Things that have helped are the Paul Rochelle Quality of Life Grant is a big one that you can speak with your care services coordinator about. We've done Symposium for 3 years. There's been Caregiver Lab. The association and chapter are big on the National Registry, which is a federal program that helps researchers try to determine cause and treatments for ALS. And my big thing is in participating in this, I'm a volunteer firefighter, and for 30 years, and for me, and here firefighters are twice as likely as the average population to get ALS. So I'm a strong advocate for trying to figure out what the causes are. And I am running out of time, but if anyone has any questions or would like to talk or get hold of me, reach out to your care services coordinator and they can pass my contact information along. And I think that was it. If there are any questions, I guess we can take questions for a few minutes, Karen.
We absolutely can. Just chat up your questions. Lori will help us become aware of those. I'm watching the chat box on the right if anyone would like to chat up a question. And I'll just mention too, the ALS registry is incredibly important, and they are here in the expo. So please do stop by and visit. And Dustin, I just want to reiterate too, the caregiver lab that your wife, Karen, and many of the caregivers have participated in was developed with Franklin Pierce Physical Therapy. And we have one of their videos up in the care services booth in the expo. So you can check out what that learning looked like. And a final gamification secret task for the day. If you go to the lobby, at the bottom of the blue bar is a picture of a gentleman with ALS and a friend. And if you click on it, it will take you to a link to become an ALS advocate. So do that for extra gamification points. And Richard is asking a question or making a comment, Dustin, just wanting to say, engaging story, well told. And Dustin mentioned that we often have smiles on our faces. Dustin has always had an encouraging word. And Roger is asking, Dustin, what were your early symptoms? And have you tried Radicava? And if so, have you realized any improvements or differences that you can share?
Yeah, no, thank you, Roger, for the question. So I was diagnosed in December of 2016, and at the time, Radicava was just finishing their clinical trials over in Japan, and the announcement was made in June or July of 2017 that the medication would be available in August. And this was just before Karen started as care services in Vermont. And I fought every day from there until the middle of October to, one, get the hospital to be able to prescribe it and insurance company to be able to cover it, and getting home health nursing staff actually came from New Hampshire because there wasn't anyone in Vermont that could infuse it. So I started in October of 2017 with it. Have I noticed any differences? I feel that it probably contributes to my slower progression. And I don't plan on stopping taking it only because, it's one of these things. It's FDA approved. Is it helping? I'm not sure. Is it hurting? I don't know. But things have been working in my favor. So I'll continue to do it. I've not noticed any side effects or anything from it, but it hasn't, gained me any strength. I've had a pretty consistent decline in my functional abilities from the beginning to now. It's been I would say, a pretty constant slope.
Thank you so much, Dustin. It's a classic research problem, is that if we're doing something, we don't know what would have happened if we hadn't done it. With that, our time for this afternoon welcome is ended. And thank you so much for sharing your story, Dustin.
Thank you guys for
Everybody,
having
please.
me.
Absolutely. So grateful for all that you and Karen and your children also do to promote the chapter and all of our activities. And with that, our screen is going to go dark for a couple of minutes. Stay right where you are, and Amber's going to be joining us to introduce the next workshop. Thanks, everyone.